Hello and welcome back to my channel yet again. Now, obviously earlier you had that catch-up video with Superman and Lois. We are now doing the exact same thing for The Flash Season 7. And obviously at this point we have had the first two episodes premiere of Season 7 of The Flash. And oh boy are they bangers. And we're going to get into why they are bangers in a minute. So let's start with that first episode, the season premiere of Season 7. And now, when the episode started, I initially thought, we're getting a little bit of a filler. Certain things are going certain ways, and I don't see a lot of it, sort of closing down on what the storylines were from the last season. Because obviously, this is a continuation of Season 6, while still being Series 7, thanks to your boy COVID. So, it is all issues, but we are backing it. And I am loving it so far. Now, this first episode, as I say, it felt a bit fillery, but boy, it wasn't. It wasn't. It's actually pretty sad of an episode, and we'll get into that why in a minute. So the episode starts out pretty simple. The usual. Something's happening. The Flash is needed, and he wakes up and he does this thing with his mask. Oh my god! When I saw that, I was like, yes, that is so cool. That's how they do it in the comics. It always bugs me in Series 6 when you see that he hasn't got a mask on. And then he runs and he's got his mask on. Where did the mask come from? It's not hanging from the back like one of the old suits. Like if you watch Elseworlds, it's hanging at the back. He just has to press a button somewhere, on his temple or his ear, wherever it might be. I'm guessing it's an earpiece. And he presses that and the mask goes over him and it looks so good. They have done it in both episodes and both times it looks really good. And I'm so glad they're doing something quite comic accurate. So yeah, Barry goes on, does his usual Flash thing, takes on McCulloch. But obviously she seems to be faster than Barry now. Because everybody's faster than bloody Barry Allen, the fastest man alive. But to the point, we only get Allegra and Chester P. Runk in this episode. We do not get any Caitlin, we do not get any Cisco. Like this new Earth Prime thing, he was cataloguing again, or he was off trying to figure out another way of saving Camilla, which I think is the latter, because of what we got in the second episode. But going back onto the first episode, and obviously we get Nash Wells working with Chester P. Runk, trying to figure out a way to make the artificial Speed Force work. Now, they have a way, they start it up, and it fails. Of course it fails. It was never going to work that early on in an episode, or what I imagined to be early on in the series. I can't believe that, COVID took away an episode where it actually fixed a lot of problems. Why? Why? Anyway. Moving on, so that obviously fails. There's a little bit of a moan, but Nash Wells obviously starts to see the other Welleses, which is quite funny. We get all these Tom Cavanaugh characters coming back. You've got Harry Wells, you've got H.R. Wells is there, some pompous actor version of Harrison Orson Welles, is it? We get all these different versions. Sherlock is in there, I believe, as well. And they're all telling him that there is only one way to bring the artificial Speed Force up and running. And that is to use the particles within Nash. Because he has, multiverse particles within him, apparently, that can open up the artificial Speed Force. I'm no scientist. I definitely don't always understand the lingo on these shows, so don't expect me to explain it to you because I can't quite explain it to myself, let alone use. Anyway, but this is very much, a very, dear part of this episode where Nash is like, no, I don't want to die, I'm not ready to die. He makes that point later on when he tells the team what else they could have done. So, some stuff happens with Cecile and Top, and that's quite interesting. They give something for Cecile to do, and Joe West is behind his desk again, and, But, Nash figures out that Allegra is the only way to do it without Nash dying. So we're back in the Speed Force room, and Allegra is there, and she's taking the particles out of Nash Wells and putting them into this sphere. It's not a squirrel sphere, don't worry. I'm okay. I'm not a speedster now. I've not got Wellses in my head. There's no Sherlock or whatever it is. Sherlock. Anyway, so yeah, that happens, but obviously it fails. And Barry moves Allegra and Wells out of the way, only to be hit with those particles straight into his brain. And Barry wakes up. He's speaking a different language because he's the French version of Harrison Wells. You know, Barry has got all the Wellses in his head now, but instead of him seeing them like Nash does, he sort of becomes them. It's very weird. Now, obviously, this cannot go well. It's not a case of if we ever want to see Harry again or whatever, it's a click and we get Harry back. No. It's a case of all these consciousnesses. Is that a word? Consciousness. Anyway, the consciousnesses of all these Welleses are now in Barry's brain, and Barry's nowhere to be seen, to a certain extent. And it's really weird that these first two episodes sort of do the same thing, but very differently. We have the comedy side, and then we have a very serious side in the second episode. But obviously this can't last, and it's killing Barry. And the longer that these particles are in Barry's brain, it'll eventually just kill Barry, leaving what I assume to be a vessel of Wellses. Which, vessel of Wellses, that sounds quite good. Right to me, CW. Eric Wallace, come on. Anyway, so yeah, Barry's going through all this. And it is funny to see Barry attempt to be like HR, attempt to be like Sherlock, and attempt to be like Harry Wells. Harry Wells, he does really well. No pun intended there, but he does it really well. And it's this episode itself does do a lot of brilliant things, and I love it. So moving on, and eventually, a lot of stuff's going on in this episode. We get a little bit of Irish stuff. There's a little nod to Clark from Fake Barry, from Mirror Barry. That was actually quite fun to hear, Even if it wasn't the real Barry and the real universe, it's quite interesting to hear these little things that get said every now and then. But yeah, Iris tries to send off an email, and something happens at the end of the episode where she sends the email off, but then it reverses back to normal. Because obviously everything is backwards. She doesn't find Camilla, and she doesn't find Singh in this episode. She finds them in the next episode. But yeah, so we move on to where they've figured out that Allegra needs to move all these particles back to Wells to a certain extent, and that's where this argument comes about. That, he hasn't changed, Nash hasn't changed, and that he's still this selfish idiot. But it's really, really good, like, emotionally. So we're back in that speed room. Some stuff is happening with McCulloch, and we get some other stuff in this episode. But the key point is how Barry gets his powers back, and why, So yeah, we're back in this Speed Force room, and Allegra's moving the particles out of the Speed Force sphere, which is what I'm going to call it because I can't remember what they call it. And this is where we get some emotional stuff. All the particles are back on this thing that they've made for Wells to wear. And, there's a moment where they're all talking. Something's happening and they need the Flash. For some reason, I cannot remember what was happening, where they needed the Flash. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. I'm starting to get a lot of this episode back now. There's a ship with some McCulloch tech on it, and there's a bomb on it, and if it goes off, it'll destroy Central City. And God knows what else. So obviously the Flash is needed. So yeah, Nash makes the decision while they're all talking, saying we need to find another way. There has to be another way. We can't do it like this. And yeah, Nash Wells touches the thing, and Nash Wells sort of goes through the same thing that Barry did with the brains of the Welleses, and sort of, you know, that circular halo thing on Barry. And it's pretty upsetting. You know, Nash is going through all these different characters, and he's like, ABA and all this, you know, he's so fast and all this. You know, it's really an emotional scene, and we do get that Barry run moment. And at that point, Barry starts to get his powers back. He's running. He's upset because obviously it's a very emotional moment, and the way I'm talking about it does not sound very emotional, but it really is. So yeah, Barry runs, saves the ship and everything. So Nash is no more. There is no more Welleses, because obviously he's the last one. So there is no more Welleses until the end of episode 2. We'll get onto that in a minute. So yeah, but then obviously at the end of this episode we do get that bit with Iris and the email, which we don't find out until the next episode that actually it was sent to the computer at wherever it is that Iris and that work at. Iris, Camilla work at, and Allegra. But obviously that is not the big kicker of the episode. The biggest kicker of this episode... I've missed out a second biggest kicker. Okay, so we'll move on to the second biggest kicker in the ending. But there's a moment at the start of the episode. I'm sorry, I'm not very prepared for this. There's a moment, as I say, it is a catch-up video. There's a moment at the start of the episode where she comes and she kills Scudder. I'm calling him Scudder for some reason. It's Shutter, isn't it? Scudder. I don't know how to say it. She kills him. And it's found out that actually he was just her plaything from the get-go. He was never real. It was just something that she used. Now, whether that means that there's a Shutter... I don't know. The guy. The original Sam Scudder. The original Mirror Master. Whether there's a version of Sam Scudder in there or not, I don't know. But we'll find out maybe later on in the series if he appears but he's not actually a villain. Anyway, that last moment where McCulloch is in her office and she finds this video. You know, she's had this video this whole time in this episode, and she's trying to figure out exactly what it is that this is all about. And she eventually opens it up. She's a little bit of a wimp about it, but she opens it up, and it's the moment that she actually got shot through the mirror. But in this video, it clearly shows that she's shot through the mirror, but actually she hits the mirror. She's not shot through the mirror. She hits the mirror, bang, her head is hit on it, but obviously there's the little wave thing, so I'm guessing that's the reason why it didn't smash. This version of Eva McCulloch, the real version, is dead. The version that we have got is a mirror version, and this is something that she has to deal with in the second episode. So that's the second episode over, and the first episode over and done with.